I want to welcome you to Dream Chasers Radio with me, your host, Yaga Diamond. What's up, peoples? How you doing? It is a great day. I'm so very excited to have you here. We have an amazing guest on the show today. He has a book out called Laughing Through Life. I think it is what it is. I think that's what it is, right? Yes,
Laughing for life.
Laughing Through
Yes,
Life, which is what we just did, right? We just laughed a
right.
little bit. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We have Mr. Larry Moran here to talk about his book, but let's go back a little bit, Mr. Moran. Let's go back into the beginning. Did you know that you were going to be an author?
Well, not really. I actually worked as a journalist for 9 years in Indiana. I covered everything from sports to presidential politics. And then from there, I moved on to the federal government where I was an economist, but my job was to tell lies for the government. No, not lies. I was to explain the economy to reporters. And I did that for 33 years. When I retired, I decided to do a little bit of writing. I wrote a book of short stories, fictional short stories, and I have a novel out. Excuse me. And I decided to do something for my kids. I wanted to have some stories about my growing up years and actually my career as well, but mostly my family. I come from an amazing family. There were 10 kids in the family. We all love each other. We still do. We're all still alive. It's just wonderful. And so I wanted to share this with my kids, but I wanted to do it in a way that wasn't just retelling stories. So a lot of the stuff in there is a little bit fictional. It's like I call it a fictional biography, but it is really an autobiography of my life.
I
And so
love it. I love it.
give it to my kids basically as a Christmas gift one year.
That's wonderful. Wonderful. I can see why you wrote a book called Laughing Through Life after coming out from the economy side. That's a
Yes.
joke. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, the way things are now, but we're not going to get into that. We're going to stay over on this side because I like this side better. I like laughing through life. So tell me about I know why you decided to put it together, but the ultimate reason is that you probably wanted the kids to know, but why did you add that little fictional part to it? I'm trying to figure out how does that work in?
Well, I did it because as I was sharing this with other people who weren't parts of my family, I realized that you needed to have stories that would interest a broad spectrum of people. And
Oh,
I actually believe this. The title of the book is absolutely true. I have spent my whole life laughing because I find humor in most things I do, even in the economy. But I mostly other experiences, and I just think laughter is a wonderful thing to share with other people.
I think you're so straightforward that we can end this interview right now. I'm just kidding. Laughing through life, right? Okay, so let's go back. In your high school years, your college years, did you ever jot things down? Was there like an indication that you would become a writer?
Well, in my high school years, I was a reporter for 3 Indianapolis newspapers. I shouldn't say reporter, but I was the person who would call them and tell them about my school's basketball and football and baseball games. And when I came out of high school, there were 10 of us. So my dad really couldn't afford to send me off to college. And I went to work for a newspaper as a sports writer. So I had that
Wow.
ahead of time. And I worked as a sports writer for about 2 years. Then I became very interested in let's say, the political atmosphere. And I actually moved into covering politics, which I did for another 6 years, working for various papers around Indiana.
Wow. There's so many people that want to get into that. There's like the contributors online, and then you have the actual physical newspapers and, magazines and stuff. This is kind of like a really far off question, but when you got the jobs, when you got that, did you freak out a little bit?
Not really. I was always actually sort of self-confident, felt like I could do a good job because I knew what I was writing about. When I was a sports writer, I knew sports very well. I see sports writers today that aren't really as interested in sports as I was. And then when I became interested in politics, and I'll tell you, one of my goals was when I entered politics, political writing, my goal was to be as fair-minded to everybody running for office as I could. And it seemed to work. And I had really close friends in the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. But my job was to report what they were saying, not to tell people who they should vote for, but to just sort of explain what these candidates stood for and what they might do. And it was a wonderful experience. So I interviewed Richard Nixon twice, had dinner with George McGovern once. So I had some pretty neat experiences. It was actually, I can't say I interviewed him, but I was at the airport when Bobby Kennedy came to Indiana on a presidential campaign about a month before he was assassinated. So it was really a great experience.
Wow, that is amazing. I mean, okay, so you've done all that, and a lot of people don't have that self-confidence. How did you get that? How did you, I mean, I know you knew. I mean, there's so many people out there that know, you know what I mean? They know more than
Right.
some of these people that are already out there writing. But how do you get to the point psychologically that you know that you can do this job and have the confidence to do it?
Well, I don't really know how to answer that other than to say that I had a wonderful mother. She gave me self-confidence. She always told me I could do anything I wanted. She was really encouraging. She didn't know much about sports, but since I wanted to be a sports writer, she was very encouraging. My dad was also very encouraging. But it was just one of those things where I loved this stuff, the sports I was writing at the time, and I just knew that I could do a good job. And as it turns out, I did. So I was going to tell you, when I came out of high school, I didn't have a college to go to because I didn't have the money. And I was looking for a job at the time, and I was having real trouble finding a job. And I happened to talk to the sports writer for the Indianapolis Times, who knew me as a stringer when I was calling in about the Carmel games. And he said, well, listen, Larry, when you go off to college, we want you to be a stringer for us there, and you can actually do more coverage. And I said, well, I'm not going to college right away. He said, what? I said, no, I don't really have the money. He said, come work for me. I mean, that was actually, that will build your confidence if the guy just says right off the top, come work for me. So I did, and I was there for 3 years.
That is amazing. Okay, so now I know the big question in the room is, you jump from sports to politics. How did that happen?
Well, in the mid 1960s, that was I actually think the 1960s was perhaps the most interesting decade in the 20th century. I mean, we had everything from presidential assassinations. We were very close to nuclear war with the Cuban Missile Crisis. There were just many, many things. But at any rate, I was very much interested in what was going on at the time. And I felt that as a journalist, I needed to know as much as I could. By the way, that is another key that I think in my own personal experience. I love to learn stuff. Even to this day, I'm taking college classes to learn stuff. I just different things. But that was a key. And so when I told my boss at the Indianapolis Times I wanted to cover politics, he said, okay, we'll move you out of the sports department. We'll move you into the news department. I mean, it was just that simple for me. It wouldn't be simple for everybody, but it was for me. And when the Indianapolis Times went out of business, they literally went bankrupt. They helped me get a job as a political reporter for a Kokomo newspaper. And from there, I moved to a Bloomington paper where I also worked as a political writer. And one sort of interesting anecdote, when I was working for this paper in Bloomington, the owner was a big Richard Nixon fan. And he came down with a dictate that we were not going to have anything negative said in the paper about Richard Nixon. And I was the political reporter, and I was not going to buy into that. Now, I actually was I believe Nixon was a good man, but I didn't think a journalist should take that approach. So I told my editor, if that's the rule here, I'm leaving the paper, which I did. And almost a week later, I got a job at the crosstown newspaper, the Herald Telephone, as their political reporter. But I mean, it was kind of an interesting thing. But I always wanted to learn and to tell people what is going on in the world.
Wow. To me, that's just so cool how they helped you too. I
Yeah,
mean, because they had that confidence in you to know that you could just jump to anything and be successful at it.
right. So you may ask me how I got into the government. Well, I was thinking at the time, since I could not go to college out of high school, when I moved to Bloomington, I did this from the outset, but I was only doing it part-time. but I started going to school full time. So I was going to school full time, and I was a political reporter for full time in Bloomington. And I was majoring in not journalism. People said, you already are a journalist, don't major in that. Major in something that you want to write about. And politics to me is about 90% about economics. Not economics in the sense that you might think, but we all have to make decision choices. And so I decided to major in economics, which I did. And when I came out of Indiana University with a degree in economics, I thought, why don't I go to Washington, D.C., work for the federal government? Maybe I can contribute to having a better economy in our country. And so I moved from, now that was the scary part.
That must have been scary.
That was scary because I had been 9 years as a journalist and I loved the job. I loved going to work every day, but I decided I wanted to do something for the country. And my choice was to go work as a government economist.
Oh my gosh. What was the shock? I mean, there had to be something.
Well, okay, I'm not sure what you mean the shock, but here's what happened to me. So I went to work for this guy in the government. It was actually in the Census Bureau at the time, but I was making estimates of economic activity, and I told him that they were making these estimates in the wrong way, and I was able to prove it mathematically to him. And here's what he said to me. He said, if you work for the government, you're going to find out that if the government does things wrong long enough, it becomes right. And I said, I'm not working for this guy anymore. And I about 2 weeks later, I got a job in another agency. But that was the shock to me, because there is that mind frame in certain people in the government that if they do things wrong enough, it becomes right. And
oh my gosh.
For the years that I worked there, I worked 33 years after that, I never met anybody quite like that.
I don't know if I want, you know what? Actually, I want him booted out of the office.
I did too, but I couldn't do that. I could just boot me out.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. That is horrible. I mean,
Yeah.
to have someone represent the America, I would have left too.
Yes.
I would have left too. And I'm glad you did. I'm glad you stood for what the American people need, which is truth.
Right.
Real truth, not like eventual truth.
No,
if
no,
there
no,
is
no.
such a thing.
There are facts, and you can present those facts, and you can do it. Really, you can do it. I think there's so much today that is sort of, if one side is telling one story and the other side is telling another, but there really are ways to tell that same story in a more neutral and a more universal way. I'm sorry we don't see that more, but we don't.
Wow. Well, laughing through life is your story plus a few different extra such and suches to
Right.
make it interesting. So tell us about that book. Tell us, what should we be getting from that book?
Well, I think you should. I hope you laugh. One of my favorite stories, and one of the stories that has been best received, is a story called "Hoosier Hysteria," which is relevant right now. It's about I was a junior in high school, and I had this big crush on this cheerleader, but I wasn't successful. And so I happened one afternoon to be at a roller rink in Noblesville, Indiana, and there she was. And what do teenage boys think? Faster and stronger is better. So I started rolling around the rink as fast as I could to impress this girl. And what do you think I did? Accidentally.
Did you fall?
I did, but right in front of this girl. Her name was Donna. I fell
Oh,
right
no.
down, and she fell down. Now, I didn't really impress her the way I had intended to impress her. So, and I was really downhearted after that. And so I decided the only way for me to win her heart was to become a star basketball player. Well, Carmel is a small town. When we moved there were 500 people in the town. Today there's about 90,000. There were 500 people. But I did make the team. I was able to make the team. All you had to do was run up and down the court without tripping over your own feet. And I made the team, but I never played in games. Just never played in games. And I was not going to impress Donna by not playing in games.
No.
Then to what's called the sectionals. It's like the NCAA tournament that's going on now, but at the state level. And it's really crazy in Indiana. People love that tournament. And we were in the finals of the sectional, the last game of the sectional. We were going to move on to the regionals. And I was on the bench, and they never played me. We were playing a big school. They were our arch rivals, Noblesville. And I was hoping that I could get in that game and help win, and then I would impress Donna. Well, it didn't work out that way. In the second half of the game, we sort of got two of our guys were home with the flu, and two guys had injured themselves. So there were 6 of us on the team, and I was the 6th guy, and I never got off the bench. But about 2 minutes to go in the basketball game, our star player fell down and just lay on the floor. And everybody gathered around him, and the coach went out there and he said, "Moran, come out here." I'm thinking, oh my God, this is my chance to become a big star. I can win this game for Carmel, and I can impress Donna. And so I went out there, and the coach looked at me and said, "Larry, take off your pants." I said, "What?" He said, "Larry Isley has ripped the seat off his pants. He needs your pants." And so I had to take off my pants and give them to Larry Isley. And that's how I made my contribution to Carmel High School basketball. Well, I mean, a lot of people would have thought that was a terrible experience. I actually thought it was funny. And
It is funny,
but
at the same time, it is terrible. I mean,
well,
did you have your boxers on?
I did, but I mean, so anyway, they covered me up the best they could. But so anyway, that's the kind of thing. There are other stories like that people might not, if it happened to them, might not really find. But I just am able to laugh at myself. I don't take myself too seriously, and life is really good that way.
Oh my gosh, I literally imagined that.
Yeah, I've been blessed. I have a wonderful family. I have all these wonderful siblings. They're great people. I have 4 great kids. I love my kids. And so life is really good.
That's wonderful. I'm so happy. And it wasn't with that girl, though.
Not with that girl. Not with that girl. There are a couple other stories. By the way, some of those stories that I put in there about my romantic experiences were absolutely true. I only had one blind date, and that didn't work out as well as I wanted it to. But anyway, you just have to smile and go forward.
I think this would be a great movie. Are you going to do it? Are you doing a script, or what are you doing?
Well, I haven't really thought about it. People have mentioned it to me. I think this might make a good TV show. I'm not sure you could do it in a movie because, well, you could do parts of it in a movie.
Right.
But some of the stuff that happens, I'll tell you a real quick story that happened when I was working in the government. Now, that would make this a movie a little bit too long, but it's a true story. When you live in Carmel, as we did, and when it was real small, you had to learn to entertain yourself. And we did that very well. We played games. Actually, my sister Carol and my brother Howard and I put on plays for neighbors and friends in our garage or in our attic. But at any rate, when I was working for the government, I came home one year to visit my family. And we were sitting around the porch with some of my younger brothers. And I was saying, Carmel's changed. When I was here, Carmel was so small, you could blindfold me, take me any place in the town, take the blindfold off, and I could be home in 10 minutes. Well, and my brother Danny said, "Well, I can do that." I said, "No, you can't." So we blindfolded Danny. This was like about 10 o'clock at night. We blindfolded Danny. We took him someplace, and he got back in 10 minutes. Well, we were all impressed. And there was a friend with us named Roger. And he said, "I can do it too." And I had a plan. So I said, "Roger, you can't do it. I bet you can't do it." So what we did was we blindfolded Roger. And the concept was we were going to take him behind the school, take him into some wooded area, take the blindfold off. If he came out of the correct side of the woods, he would be able to get home. But if he didn't, he would have no idea where it was. So we put him in the back of the car. This is about 1:30 in the morning.
Oh my God, no.
We pulled into the school parking lot, and we started to get out, and we hear police car pulls up. And this guy, I don't know, was it Barney Pfeiffer, who it was? He says, "Stay in the car." So we all stayed in the car. 2 other police cars showed up. And finally, a fourth police car showed up, and they said, "Get out and put your hands on the car." There were like 4 of us in the car at the time. And anyway, one of my brothers, Howard, he wanted to fight the cops. Howard, they're doing their job. But anyway, we got out of the car, and I figured since I was the oldest, I should be the one to explain this to the cops. So I told him what we were doing, and he said, "Let me see some ID." And so I showed him my government ID. That's what I had. It was easy. He looked at this ID. He says, "You work for the federal government? And you're playing hide and seek at 1 o'clock in the morning here?" He said, "No wonder the government's in terrible shape." So anyway, those are kind of stories that you would find in my book.
Oh,
So
that is hilarious. Oh my gosh, that should be, yeah, a TV show or even a short movie or something. That's just amazing. I think you should go for it.
yeah.
I would literally want to see this. Like, where did this guy end up? I mean, seriously. Especially on the basketball court in your boxers,
In my
giving your shorts to someone else. That right there, that I want to see.
Well,
That
anyway,
is
so
amazing.
you can see that I sort of don't take myself too seriously. I don't take life. I think there are really important things that you have to be serious about, but don't take yourself too seriously. And life has its ups and downs,
Yeah.
but you have to learn to laugh. And that's what I want people to know. Learn to laugh.
That's it. That's it. Well, thank you so much, Larry, for being on the show. Where can people find your book, Laughing Through Laughter? Oh, was it Laughter Through Life? I'm laughing through life. I'm sorry.
Laughing through life. That's okay. They can find it on Amazon. They think they can find it at Barnes and Noble. So it's out there.
Awesome. Well, we'll put the link in the description box below. So it's Laughing
Okay,
Through
good.
Life.
Laughing Through Life. Yeah, it's on Amazon and Barnes and Noble.
Definitely. And we'll put that link in the description box below. So it'll be easy for you guys to go ahead and laugh through life.
Okay. Thank you very much. I've enjoyed it.
Thank you.
And it was wonderful.
And thank you. Oh,
Okay.
yes. When you come back or when you literally do a movie, you have to come back and let us know.
I will do that. All right.
Yeah, definitely. And I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in. Don't forget to dare to be different. And until next time, guys, don't forget to laugh through life. Until next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.